All right. Good evening, everybody. Hey, folks. Yeah, yep, here everyone comes. I'm
Wonderful.
hoping people realize that daylight savings happened and we're at a different time this week. I think they
Yeah.
cancel out. I think between daylight savings and pushing it an hour, this is the usual time, right?
No, I
Right? I
think,
think so. Ooh.
isn't it the opposite direction? This is like
Oh,
9 p.m.
oh no. Okay, so we're like 2 hours off here.
I
Yikes. Well,
know.
thanks for coming, folks, despite the time weirdness this week.
Good
As always,
evening.
as always, let us know where you're joining from. All right. Hey there. All right. So I'm going to get the Facebook stream started.
Okay. You're so good at
Mm.
this. You are so good at this.
It's just practice. This is year 4 of these webinars.
Yeah.
So
It's so
it's
great.
old hat by now. Yeah.
Yeah. So great that you could do this in the webinar. Hello.
It's one of my
This
very
is-
favorite parts of work. I love these webinars. Hey, folks.
I am so impressed that we have guests from the East Coast. Here I am on the West Coast talking about how this time last night, I was getting ready for sleep. You all have stayed up. It is maybe even 11 p.m. where you are. So good
Mhm.
evening. I'm really delighted you're all here. This is
Yeah, we may have some of these like total champions tuning in from like Ethiopia and Sudan where it's
very
like 4
cool.
in the morning.
Very cool.
So
Yeah.
anyone here at 4 in the morning, y'all are heroes.
Absolutely. Hopefully they're just going to catch the recording.
Hopefully that seems wise, but all right, folks. So this is week 7. We have a very exciting topic tonight, some knowledge about making online resources for your language. So without further ado, I'm just going to hand it right over to our workshop leader tonight, Stephanie Witkowski from 7,000 Languages. Thanks for being here, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's 5 a.m. in Cameroon. Oh, thank you all for being here. It's really a pleasure for me to be with you today. So hello and welcome. My name is Stephanie Witkowski. I am the executive director of an organization called 7,000 Languages. I'm coming to you today from Southern California. And so I just want to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from the stolen lands of the Tongva and the Ahachman people. And despite centuries of colonialized violence, they are still here, thriving, and working diligently on the preservation of their language and their culture, just like all of you. And so I'm so proud and so humbled to be amongst all of you here today. I'm really delighted to talk to you about dictionaries and other online language resources that are available for you so you can begin this work. Not really begin. I know you're all doing amazing language revitalization work, but maybe begin to add another element to help support some of the wonderful work you're doing. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Here we are. Just let me know if you can't see it, but I'm assuming we're all good. So again, we're going to talk about dictionaries. I'm going to talk a lot about online courses because that's exactly what we do at 7,000 Languages and a couple other language resources. So this will be a really jam-packed workshop. I'm going to try my hardest to sort of see the chats come in, but I also know that Anna's really amazing about responding to chats. And of course, I'll pause a couple times and make sure to leave plenty of time near the end for questions and answers. But our goals for this workshop are to talk about dictionaries first and foremost, give an overview, talk about some dictionary softwares that are available now that you might want to start using for your language. We're also going to talk about some online language learning options. And of course, that includes the work that we do at 7,000 Languages. So I'm excited to introduce you to our organization if you don't already know about us. And we're going to explore how to create a lesson online. I'm going to give you a little tutorial. After this recording, if you have the recording and after this, you should be able to create a lesson all on your own in your language. So I'm excited to be able to give you that tool today. So let's just get started. Let's talk about dictionary making first. And I think the first thing to talk about is why you might want to consider having a dictionary as part of your language revitalization work. A dictionary, sometimes also referred to as a lexicon, can be really useful for community members and non-community members alike. It certainly can be a great resource to have in the classroom. And it can also be useful if you have external linguists or scholars who you invite to work on your language. Having a dictionary, having that resource available may be a really excellent way to ensure that the documentation and the revitalization of your language can continue. For so many communities, having a dictionary adds prestige as well. It really can make them feel proud, and it can add a level of prestige and seriousness and authority that your language is real and it exists and it deserves to be recognized. And of course, the truth is that a dictionary really can provide a full catalog of all the words in a language, which will be different from creating online language learning resources, and you'll see that difference. But a dictionary can provide that full catalog, that full inventory of words in your language. So that might be something that you want to create for your language. There's a couple types of dictionaries, which I'm going to go over really quickly. Probably one of the most common types of dictionaries, and certainly the type that we use in English language. So if you're familiar with English language dictionaries, they're in alphabetical order. So we have letters, we have them in order, our alphabet, and as we organize our dictionary, words are presented in that order so that you can easily look up a word as long as you know how it's spelled. For some languages, that wouldn't make sense. And so the dictionary is organized by root, because for some languages, there is a root, and then there's a series of affixes that get attached to that root, and they're highly predictable. And it wouldn't make sense to, for example, this root in this language, it wouldn't make sense to have every single item here in the dictionary alphabetically. It would make sense to have the root, and then the very predictable affixation pattern would come after. So if you think that you might have this type of language, you should consider having a root-based dictionary, not an alphabet dictionary. I'm going to talk about one other type of dictionary, which might be really helpful for those of you who are thinking about dictionaries, and that's a thematic dictionary. And the idea here is that words are actually grouped by a subject or by what we call a domain, which really means a space or an area. For example, a domain can be a house and different rooms in a house. My domain that I'm in right now is my office space. So I could create a dictionary where I go through each room in my house, and then I go into a neighborhood or a city, and I start to collect words that I would need in those spaces. So I'm looking around my office and I'm thinking, I need a word for mug. I need a word for mouse. I need a word for headphones if I have it. So the nice thing about these types of dictionaries is often they can be compiled in less time because it's not such an exhaustive list in alphabetical order. They can be tailored to your community interests. Maybe there are limited resources, and so creating a full alphabet dictionary is going to take a lot of time. But you know that you want the language to be used in certain domains, like in the home, in markets. So you can start to create those pieces to your dictionary and start to use them right away. One of the drawbacks, though, is that at times these dictionaries can lack very common but not thematic words. So an example might be a word like hope or truth, which we very much know what that means. That's an important word, perhaps, in our language, but I can't quite find the right domain for it. It doesn't really come up when I'm thinking about my office, for example. And it's often not it's not the most easy searchable type of dictionary. So if somebody knows how to spell a word and they just want to get right to that word, going through a thematic dictionary, they probably have to do a little bit more thinking about where would I find that word? So some pros and cons, a lot to think about, right, when you want to make a dictionary. I'm going to move on now to talk a little bit about some of the information you're going to want to collect if you want to make a dictionary in your language. So first you have to think about what kind of dictionary might make sense for you. And then you're going to think about how to collect all this information about your language to fill a dictionary. Here's the main parts of a dictionary, and there's often other parts as well. But the first is a head word. So this is often the most simplified form of a word. So you're going to have to do a little bit of thinking as you decide to add words into your dictionary to come up with the most simplified form. So form of the word without any endings, ideally, right? So I'm always thinking about verbs that in English that end in ing, like running. Running, you're really going to want to just do that work to make sure that you're thinking about the simplest form of a word. And then you're also thinking about really predictable endings that exist in your language, or prefixes as well, or any kind of other morphology that might exist in your language. You're probably going to want to include pronunciation. IPA is a great resource. So I know that there is already an amazing LDTC webinar. So use some of those skills to think about how to pronounce words in the language. You might want to include that. Parts of a speech. This is often information that's included in a dictionary so that people know how to use the word. So parts of a speech and an example sentence to really show learners how these words are used in context. You can include a definition, which is the explanation of a word's meaning. You can include this in the language. So if you want a monolingual dictionary, you absolutely can create that, where there is less of a reliance on another, perhaps more dominant language, and you can provide a short definition of any word that you include in your dictionary. I do know, though, that for a lot of communities and cultures, a bilingual dictionary or a multilingual dictionary is an amazing resource to have. And so in that case, you would probably want to include translations into one or more languages to help people who are learning the language, who maybe would start from knowledge of another language, to help them more easily understand the meaning of the words in the language that you are revitalizing. Of course, with translations, it's often not one-to-one, right? It's often not the case that there is the perfect translation into another language. So I think that's why it's really nice to include example sentences as well that really show the language being used. So some things to watch out for, again, as you are preparing to create a dictionary. Homophones. So these are words that sound the same, but have different meanings. They can be spelled differently, or they can be spelled the same, because we know that writing systems don't always capture how words sound. So a homophone is really about two words that sound the same. They can also be different parts of speech, or they could be the same part of speech. So for example, we have the verb see, and then we have a sea as an ocean. So these are homophones. We'd want to ensure that our dictionary was treating these as two separate words. They're very different, even though they sound exactly the same. They're spelled different as well. But dress, we have two types of dress, probably more, but one might be a garment of clothing, a noun, and the other is a verb, to dress, to get dressed. So both of those would be in your dictionary as dress, but they're two separate items, most likely. So here's another example. So this kind of talks about multiple definitions using the word run, but also lots of different senses. So we might say there's two entries for run in our dictionary. Might be how we might want to organize it, to say that there's run a verb and run a noun. But even amongst those two definitions, there can be multiple senses or even multiple definitions within those. So these are things to think about in your language as you begin this process or begin thinking about what a dictionary might look like for you. Also, suppletion. So this is a great example as well, especially when we're talking about the most simplified form of a language. So the idea of go and went. We know in English language that we often add a suffix ed when something happens in the past. Walk, I walked yesterday, but go, we use a completely different word. So most likely we would have this as one entry, right? When again, think about the most simplified version of that verb, which is probably in the present tense, so it's probably go. And we're gonna wanna make a note that actually this doesn't follow the rules that our language usually follows. We have suppletion here. It looks completely different. And I guess this is a really beautiful example in ancient Greek too, of suppletion, just totally different word. So what kind of software is out there if you're interested in creating a dictionary for your language? Thankfully, there's a lot of free options. Two options are created by SIL, and these are options that a lot of linguists use, but also community members. We say it's been around for a little while now. I think about 10 or 11, maybe even 12 years. It's been around for a while. And the goal was for this to be a dictionary program that linguists and non-linguists could work on together, so that it was really intended for non-linguists, for community members, an easy way for them to get started on creating their dictionary. I do like we say, it's free to download. There'll be plenty of links at the back of these slides for you to download these software programs if you're interested. It's easy to get started. And the thing that I like as well about We Say is they have a lot of prompts for those semantic domains. So like we talked about having a thematic dictionary, if that's something you're interested in, they have a really nice section where they kind of prompt you through, oh gosh, hundreds, I want to say, different semantic domains to help encourage you to think about different words you might have in your language. Flex is another software by SIL. It's a really robust software. Lots of linguists use it. Lots of lexicographers use Flex or something like it. It offers a lot of, I suppose, bells and whistles is a phrase we use, right? So you can do interlinear text, you can gloss specifically what a word means, like each morpheme, and then sort of a general definition of the word. So you can really break apart each piece of a word and really explore the morphology in the language a bit more. Also, you can include cultural resources. You can include, I believe, stories and texts, and it'll auto-gloss. If it already recognizes something, it'll auto-gloss the words. So it's a really robust software, also free. Something else I would encourage anybody in this workshop to look at would be the Living Tongues, their Living Dictionary program. And they have so many resources available if you want to learn more about how to create this. The Living Dictionary is an online dictionary platform. So instead of the other two, which are softwares that you would have to download onto your device, this is entirely online. So you can work with multiple team members pretty seamlessly. And I think it's a really great program as well. And you can add information in multiple languages. You can really do everything that the other softwares can do. And it's all online, and it's also free. They have a lot of great resources. I talked a little bit more about this last year, and I know the recording's on Facebook, but the Living Tongues, they have workshops regularly to help you if this is something that you're interested in exploring more. So they have a really, really wonderful support. So I would encourage you to go check out livingtongues.org and check out their living dictionaries as well. All right. That's it for dictionaries. That was a lot of information. I'll pause to see if any questions are coming through, and then I'm gonna switch gears a little bit and start talking about computer-assisted language learning. So I'm gonna take a sip. I'm drinking hot chocolate. It's not that cold here, but I'm feeling very cozy with you all today. So going to take a pause, going to have a drink, and then we'll talk a little bit more about computer-assisted language learning courses. Oh, I'm glad that these are fantastic resources. All right. Well, again, I know Anna's going to be on top of it if anything comes up in the chat. So we'll move on. So let's talk about computer-assisted language learning courses or resources for your language, or sometimes they're referred to as CALL, C-A-L-L. So I might refer to it as that. In particular, this is what we do at 7,000 Languages. So I'm really excited to talk about this. So computer-assisted language learning resources or courses or lessons, this is more designed for learners, for sharing language, for teaching and learning and sharing. Let's see, there's lots of different types of learning materials you can create, really, for as many different languages as there are, there's that many types of courses and lessons that can be created. So however you're interested in sharing your language or helping people to learn it, I strongly believe that there's a way to make technology fit that and support that work. So some examples, some of the types of courses that people create are beginner, intermediate, and advanced courses, right? Taking a language learner through the journey of learning the language, starting with kind of small pieces of the language and then moving to more complex grammar, doing more conversation and stories. So that's one way which you can think about creating language learning resources. A lot of communities we work with create a lot of conversation-based courses, which is also really exciting. And so there's less of an emphasis on learning words or individual vocabulary items, and there's more of an emphasis on how to have a conversation, especially in specific domains, right, or specific places. What does it look like when somebody comes over and you want to greet them, and what do they say to you and what do you say to them? What does it sound like if you go to a market and you're trying to exchange or buy or sell items? Things like that. So a little bit more conversation based as opposed to just delivering a lot of vocabulary words. It's always an idea too to create courses based around original texts or original stories. So a lot of communities, they have plenty of resources that can serve as these anchor points, and then they can create courses out of those. Courses that draw out vocabulary items and phrases, but also courses that just share more about the culture and the community and traditions. Land-based learning courses, this is something that we're really excited about, and I'm excited to share. I'll link out in just a minute here. I'm excited to share some of the work that we're doing at 7,000 Languages, especially with the support of an intern we had, to marry what's happening in mapping softwares and what we're doing in our language learning software, because we really firmly believe that language and land are often so interwoven, so interconnected. Land offers a natural space for learning language. Language often refers back to practices and traditions on land. So that's kind of a cool thing that we're doing. So that might be of interest to some people in this workshop. Or lessons that really just connect with specific practices, perhaps lessons that revolve around the time of year. We worked with a partner in Alaska, and they created 12 lessons. It was like one for each month, and it was also seasonally. And it was all about things that happened and took place during that time of year. So again, you can get really creative when you think about how to teach your language and how to share it. So these are just some of the things you can do with computer-assisted language learning. But let's talk about what you would probably want to include in an online course. So just like dictionaries, when you create online language learning courses, you do have to do a lot of thinking and a lot of planning and a lot of digging into your language. So you're going to want to think about vocabulary items. Sometimes these are going to be words. sometimes phrases, sometimes full sentences. You're going to want to think about these items that you're going to want to teach. Think about phrases, common phrases, and stories. You probably will want to include audio. And you can include those in dictionaries as well. That's what I should have mentioned about the living dictionaries. You can also include audio. So you probably want to include audio. Do you have recordings? Is there archived audio or audio that you can get? Maybe a recording of a story or a song. How can you include that into your online language learning materials? Lots of our courses include images and videos to really capture the tradition and the culture. And you might also probably want to consider translation into some other languages to help your learners who are coming to learn this language but have another language that they know. So translations are always a nice way to help easily understand what a word or a phrase might mean. Although the translations are never perfect, sometimes they're a nice anchor. But I know plenty of communities that do not want to rely on another language to teach their language. So this is more like an immersion method, and that's an amazing way to teach language and can be done online as well. So I know that for so many communities, really an immersion method, anchoring the language, using images, using audio, and using videos to help create meaning in a more authentic way is how they want to go about teaching their language. And you can do that as well. So I'm going to show you a lot. Just like with the dictionaries, there's plenty of softwares available. There's plenty of options for creating online language learning tools. There are established language learning platforms like Rosetta Stone or Duolingo. They might not have support in your language, but they might, which is amazing. And sometimes they reach out to new communities and are eager to work with new communities. There's also free generators that can generate free resources like flashcards or quizzes. So Memorize, Anki, Quizlet, these are all online generators. You can use them today to input some of your language data and begin sharing and teaching materials. Of course, you can work with independent developers as well. And these are developers who maybe can create a mobile app for you or website for you. And so they work specifically with you to tailor your technology to meet your needs. However, big caveat thing to say is check before you tech. So I'll share this PowerPoint, and there's a great link to the First Peoples Cultural Council. They have this amazing resource about ensuring that before you work with an independent developer, before you decide to share what might be, really highly sensitive language data or language data that, you have a vested interest in, that you ensure that you're doing your research, that you're getting your questions answered, and that you know what's going on. So check before you tag. I'm sure Anna can quickly put that link in the chat as well. I can't say enough about that resource. I think it's fantastic. So there are tons of options for creating language learning materials, but I'm going to definitely talk more about the work that we're doing at 7,000 Languages. So I'm going to pop over here to this other slideshow to tell you about us. So we're 7,000 Languages. We're a little bit more like one of the established language learning platforms, kind of like a Rosetta Stone a little bit. We work with a company called Transparent Language. They donate software to us so that we can in turn work directly with communities to teach, learn, and sustain their endangered languages. That is our mission. I'm going to pause here and talk just a little bit about our values, because I think there's a lot of important stuff to sort of say when we're talking about language data and data sovereignty and using online platforms and resources. So I want to pause, talk about our values, and talk about our commitment to data sovereignty. First of all, we believe in ownership and empowerment. We believe that language belongs to the community of ancestors. And so we very strongly believe in data sovereignty, and all of the data that we use in our course creation software belongs to the community organization or tribal nation gets to actually copyright the language learning courses. And we share all of our language data back to the community. We absolutely value respect and collaboration, and our approach to creating these materials is one that is very much rooted in learning about the needs of the community, learning about the amazing work that community is already doing, and seeing how we can amplify and support that work. So we just absolutely believe, again, that these materials, these technology materials, these resources should be made available to everybody, every community, for as little to no cost as possible. In fact, we at 7,000 Languages, we never charge our community partners. We believe that this technology should be accessible. We believe that everybody deserves the right to share their language using online language learning tools, if that's what that community desires for their language. So we've worked with a lot of communities over the years. We have over 50 courses in nearly 30 languages on our platform. And so these are all community partners that we've worked with that, once again, we've never charged. They all have the copyright to their courses. And then we also provide those courses for free on our website to learners as well. So these are just some of our partners. We are working with many, many more. I'm going to talk just a little bit more about the software itself. Then I'm going to take a pause, and then we'll look at the platform. So one of the things that we think is exciting, one of the reasons why we think, you might want to consider creating online language learning resources is that you can have a much broader reach in terms of reaching more potential students, be it community members who unfortunately live further away from the speaker community members in diaspora, or just members that have moved away. You can provide online language learning materials, and so they can learn from all over the world. Some communities, again, there's a sense of prestige and pride in having online language learning materials as well. Once again, showing that your language is real, it is full, and deserves to be recognized. And also, some of the work that we do is being used in schools to teach students and to help amplify the work that communities are already doing to teach students in school, but now are adding an element of online learning to both reinforce the language that's being used in person, but also help to bring new speakers into the fold. So those are some of the reasons why some communities have decided to create online language learning materials. There's so many reasons. I think it's just important to note that this is one tool of many tools, and that when it is used to help support and amplify language revitalization work that's already happening, I think that's when it's strongest. So I'll talk a little bit more about the software. The software that we use at 7,000 Languages, it can work on your computers, phones, tablets. There's over 40 different types of activities, which I'm going to show you. It's overwhelming. You can have vocabulary activities. You can teach vocabulary items. Again, that's like, it could be a word, it could be a phrase, it could be a full sentence. You can teach grammar. We have several activities which help explore grammar, especially morphology, and culture as well. So we have a lot of different ways in which you can incorporate traditional knowledge, traditional practices, information about the community and the culture. Conversation practices, you can include text. So if you have written language, you can include audio, you can include videos. So lots of different types of media. This software can also work offline. It says via audio flashcards. There's a couple activities now that technology has gotten a little bit better. There's a few activities that you can also do offline. Because I know that for so many communities, internet access is unreliable, expensive. And so, we really believe, again, that having these materials that can be used offline is critical. And it can support teachers. So there's a lot of back-end infrastructure to help support teachers as well who are already teaching the language. So you can set up virtual classes, you can assign lessons, you can create reports, you can do assessments. So there's a lot you can do within the software. Some of these tools are incredibly robust, but exciting. I love this quote, and I really, truly believe that creating online language learning materials can be a way to help people develop their comfort zone and help them to engage and connect with one another. I hope that's one of the ways in which that critical work that's happening in language revitalization can be done. So once again, we never charge communities. It's 100% free. Communities own the copyright to all of their language data. And when I say language data, I mean raw language data, like language data that is handed in into the software, like IMG files, WAV files, all that raw data, but also sort of software created data. So Excel file sheets, XML files, there's a lot of data that gets generated in the software. All of that belongs to the community as well. So we don't lay any claim to any data, whether we generate it or not. Data can be exported for other projects. So we have had partners who have used some of the language data that was collected and organized for our online learning tool, and they put it in other online learning tools. They put it in dictionary software. So they started working on a course, and then they created a dictionary with all of the data that they collected for the course. So we, as much as possible, want to ensure that all of your data can be easily translated into other projects. And then courses are available for free at 7000.org if you want them to be public. We also are happy to work with communities that want all or some of their language to remain private, just for some community members. So we understand that that's important too for some communities. All right, so I'm gonna take a pause here. I'm gonna stop sharing this screen. I'm about to share my browser so you can see what the software looks like, but I'm gonna also take a look at the chat just to make sure our community. Sorry, Tara Rose. Oh, okay, I see. You talked some more about it. Cool, great questions. Okay, so Tara or Tara, I think it'd be awesome for communities. Elders spend so much time teaching. Yeah. So one of the communities that we're working with in Alaska, they have an elder come into the classroom to teach, but the elder can only come in 1 day a week, right? Because their time is, it's valuable, and they want to spend this time with the students, but they're older. And so what they're doing in Alaska is they're using the software to sort of bookend that experience where the elder comes in. So they sort of preload the students. Then the elder comes in and shares whatever the elder wants to share. And then the teachers quickly, because you can make a lesson, you'll see in like 10 minutes, quickly make a lesson based on what the elder shared so that students can still reinforce. So that time with the elder is so precious, but we understand that language learning takes a lot of time. So awesome. Okay, just how many vocabulary entries are needed for a basic functional course of the language? What a great question on Robert. Oh, and Tara, you meant about data sovereignty. We are too. We're committed. We're committed to data sovereignty and ensuring that our practices are continuing to evolve, and we're listening. We added a couple of amazing board members who are very, very strong supporters of data sovereignty as well. Okay. For a basic course, it really depends. It really depends, Robert, on what your goals are for your language. So a course could be several stories, and then you could pull vocabulary or not. I would say we recommend about 10 or so vocabulary items per lesson. And most courses have at least 10 lessons. So we're talking like 100 to 150 vocabulary items. Typically, you can do more, you can do less. Okay. For spoken languages that they do not have their own writing system or they share it with the dominant languages, there's a specific way for us to document these types of languages and make dictionaries for them. That is such a great question about the dictionary making. Yeah, I absolutely think you can still, if the writing system is shared, you can still absolutely create dictionaries. And you can make note maybe of different differences in the writing systems. And I believe that you can, with the living dictionaries, create, I'm pretty sure you need writing system. Because I think, yeah, if you can have like just audio and images, that would be really probably amazing if there wasn't a writing system for a language. That's a good question. All right. I'm going to, with 20 minutes left, I'm going to share a little bit about our software and I'm going to show you how to make a course because it's pretty easy. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. So I am now sharing my web browser. And this is our website, 7000.org. And I wanted to start here just because I really welcome you guys to come check us out. 7000.org. You can go to this tab, work with us, and you can learn more about, like you can do demo a course. You can learn about our program, and you can always reach out to us as well. So you can contact us, all the way down there. This contact form, it seems impersonal, but we read them. We read these emails and we get lots of emails from communities who want to create an online language learning course. We always respond and we're so eager to work with communities. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out. I'll put my email in the chat too before I go. You can just reach out to me directly. So let's talk about our platform. So we use transparent language. Oh, I logged out. All right, let me log back in. So we use transparent language. Again, they're our donor organization, and this is what their language learning program looks like. So if you ever learn one of our languages, you'll see a page that looks like this. And these are the languages that we've worked on. But we're going to go to the instructor portal, and I would be so happy to get anybody set up with an instructor portal so you can begin authoring. So this is our authoring page. This is where we create language learning lessons. So I'm going to pop into this one, this demo one, and show you how to do it. So a couple different ways in which you can create your lessons. First is you can start with the text if you want. So for me, I am doing mine in Slovak, by the way. So mine says, ahoy, hello, volam sa Stephanie. My name is Stephanie. So I'm going to start with that text. I could write more if I wanted. Maybe I want to talk about like my mom. My mom, her name is Denise. Oops. So, okay. So ahoy, volam sa Stephanie. Moja mama volam sa Denise. That's my first lesson. So the source is me, or the source is 7000 language, or the source, this is where you would put your community, tribal nation, any group, the date I created it, and then I can include an objective for the learner. So learn how to say my name is. That's our goal. All right. So you can start, like I said, with the text, and then from there, you can pull vocabulary items. So, ahoy, volam that means my name is. Moya, that means my. Mama, that means mom. Cool. I'm going to pull those vocabulary words. I only have 4. Like I said, I recommend 10 to 15. That says down there. So we can, I don't know why this first one's blank, but I can trash it. No worries. So I pulled my vocabulary. So now I can use my English translation. You don't have to have a translation in another language. And this doesn't just have to be English. It could be any language you want. And of course, the language that you're presenting can be any language you want. So we can talk about creative ways to get around this. But for this lesson, I am going to translate it into English. So this one's like, hi, mom, my, this is like name is. Okay, so I could do a phrase, I can do several words. In each one of these items, there's a field to include much more information about the language. So I'm going to actually pop over to another tab so you can see one that's a bit more completed. It's kind of like when you watch a cooking show and they like put something in the oven and then they take it out and it's all done. That's what we're going to do. So this is one I created earlier. Same language. So this one says, hello, how are you? I'm good. Talked about my name. I'm in California. So I put in a lot more text. So I had a lot more vocab to select. Cool. So now I've completed more of these fields and I'm going to show you again what you can include in your language learning course. So the first field here is going to be the vocabulary item that you're teaching, and then the language that you might want to translate it into. This next field, it says hint. This might be an area where there's something specifically grammatical that's happening in the language that you want to be sure that you share with your learners. Because if they don't know this, then they're not going to understand perfectly what the word means, right? Because we use that in English for anything, my cup, my mom, my dad, but in Slovak, they have moja for feminine things, and they have moj down here for masculine things. So I'm going to need to include that hint. I can also write more comments about this. So these will be things that your learner sees just one time, but this is a great way to explain how the language is used in context. So it might be a grammatical explanation, could be cultural, like we only use this at a certain time of year, only in a certain tradition. So that's information about the entry. And then you can include information down here. There's all these buttons. So you can include audio files. So you can upload audio files. You can record audio files. I recorded myself earlier. You can also include alternative answers. So a good example for an alternative answer is mama and mom. You can also include images. So we know that in English, you can say mother, mommy, mama, or mom. So all of these are answers that if my learner types them in, I want them to get it correct. So if they see the word mama and they type in mama, well, that's correct. Same thing in Slovak. So now I've got another alternative answer button here. There's also a word matka, which is like my little mom or something. So we can also include that information. So there's lots of different information that you can include about the language here in these fields. So after you write your text, you select your vocab, or you just go straight to this screen if you want, and you can just put in all of your vocab words for that specific lesson. Okay, and then you put in all of those fields. Incomplete, but I'm going to continue anyways, because this is the really exciting piece. These are all of the different activities that we have for you guys to choose from when you're creating these online language learning materials. So some of them are going to be really straightforward. You've probably seen them a million times, like an image matching. So I can show you what an example looks like when I press this button. This isn't from my lesson. This is just an example, but all I see, it's going to give me some images and I have to choose the right vocabulary word. Some of these activities you have to configure, like a slideshow. So a slideshow is a great way for you to maybe introduce the lesson, give more information. You can include images, you can include lots of information about the grammar of the language, cultural information. So this is a really great resource as well that's built right into your lesson activities. One of my favorite lessons, or one of my favorite activities, excuse me, is Image Explorer. I'm going to show you the configure side. Image Explorer is so cool because what I was saying earlier, where we're really trying to focus on ways to contextualize language learning in place, like for example, online, is this Image Explorer. So you can upload an image. You can especially upload a 360 or panorama image. So cool. Then you can add labels to your image. So maybe you want to add a vocabulary item, like I added krad, which is castle in Slovak. So maybe you want to add that. But you also, and you can include hints and things like that, like I showed you, but you can also just add information, like general information. So this is where you could put a cultural note. This is where you could put a part of a story, anything that you want. And it's all situated like inland in space and with an image. So we're kind of getting a little further away from this idea of only learning language via translations. So that's just why I really, really love this activity. I'm gonna save and close. There's so much more you can do. You can create multiple choice activities. There's plenty of listening activities. You can do fill in the blank activities. So you can fill in the blank with the text. So maybe I want my learner to fill in these words, but you could also do it. Here's an example. If you wanted to teach something more grammatical, like affixations or roots or something like that. So you could also have a list of words and your learner has to, for this one, this is plurals. Your learner will have to select the right one. So like I said, there's nearly 40 when you include the different assessments. I wish I could go over each one with you, but I just wanted to show you just how much you can do. So all of this is available. You can create a lesson, usually takes 20 to 30 minutes. And then I wonder if it's going to let me preview it. I don't think it will because something's missing. But essentially, I'll go to our webpage and you can see, essentially when you preview it, so you can go to this demo button, you can kind of preview it and you can see what your lesson looks like. It's mad at me. It won't let me preview it yet because I didn't configure everything. But essentially, this is what the technology looks like. So check out our website, go to the Work With Us tab, and you can find this demo and you can see all of the different activities. This is in German language, but these are just some of the activities that you can do. So as you're creating, you can always click preview and you can just right away see what you're working on, go back, edit it if you need. You can also include external files and links. So you can really just include as much as you want in these lessons. I think in here too, there was a video, you can embed a video. There's a lot of ideas. So that was a really, really quick little tour around what we do at 7,000 Languages. I'm going to stop here. I will not stop sharing just in case any of you want to see something, but I'm going to sort of poke into the chat I'll stop talking. And I will also put in my email in the chat too, which is info@7000.org. So you can always hit contact us or just email us at info@7000.org. Email us and I can get you access to this back-end software and give you a little user guide that will help show you how to do this. It's really easy. And we also lead more workshops, so 7,000 languages, and we go more in depth into this, but I just wanted to show you. Please email us. Okay, let me go through and just make sure I answered everybody's questions. This is not First Voices. First Voices is a different organization with the First Peoples Cultural Council, and they're amazing. So we're not using the same platform, but they also are doing amazing things. Endangered alphabets. We can work with lots of different writing systems, and we can customize a keyboard and customize what your writing system is to use in this platform. That's part of what we do when we work with people. And then, okay, dictionary making of a lifetime work. I think there are different types of dictionaries depending on the amount of words you have. What do you think? How many words do you need to document using a dictionary? Dictionary making can be a lifetime's work, but it doesn't mean that you can't get started with just a handful of words. You can get started and work with multiple collaborators and keep the work going. So I think at any point you might want to consider making a dictionary to have as that resource. Especially if you use something like the living dictionaries online, you can always add to it. You can always add because it's online, as opposed to printing a dictionary and then thinking, oh no, we've got another couple of hundred words to add. Okay, I saw Anna replied. Share the link to the website. I think Anna shared. These activities don't have to be in English. You can use any language you want. And the software can be in Spanish. It's localized in a few languages. So localization means like everything you see. So text details, vocab selection, all of that stuff that you see is localized in a few languages: Spanish, French, Portuguese, Mandarin Chinese, Korean, Turkish. So that's a localization. And then within inside that, you can use any language you want. You can create a language learning course in any language you want. Email me. Your lessons do not have to be open to the public at all. In fact, I can't even see what you create unless you choose to share it with me or you make it public. So you saw that publish button. That's like you're like, okay, I want this to be public for everybody. And then there's a preview a button, which will pull up a link, but that link you can share with anybody you want. It never expires. So you can definitely just share your materials with people you want to share them with. Okay. I hope I answered all those questions. There was some questions about writing dictionaries. Good question, overwhelming question, a big question about dictionaries and what to include in a dictionary. And I think you guys hit the nail on the head that it could be a lifetime's work. And there's a lot that you can include in a dictionary, but also you can get started with a little bit of information as well. I would strongly recommend that you check out the living dictionaries and living tongues, because I think that it's a really easy way to get started. And then I also think that they have a lot of support to help you when you're like not sure what to include or not sure entirely, if you're doing it right. It happens all the time. So I would really encourage you to go to livingtongues.org. And then, yes, thank you, Anna. She's like on top of it. Same with us. Same with us at 7,000. Contact us, reach out to us. We want to support you as much as you need if you create online language learning materials with us. Because sometimes the exact same questions come up, like, how much language do I need? Is this good enough? What should this look like? So just know that we're here to support you. So once again, feel free to email me info@7000.org or go to our website, 7000.org, and click on the contact us. We're so happy to work with you. We don't have a physical office in Boston. We're headquartered in Boston, but we're all over the place. So we all work remotely. But if you're ever in Boston, let me know. Cool. Well, it's 9 p.m. I'm happy to answer any more questions, but really, this was such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, Stephanie. That was a fantastic session. Also, I don't think I had ever seen the back end of the 7,000 software, and it's so easy. It's so cool.
It's so easy. And yeah, you can train others. That's the thing. I think we want everybody to learn how to do it, take ownership, train others, create language and learning materials in perpetuity. Take advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many cool free tools out there, y'all. So go try them. Find ones that work really well for your community's needs.
Yeah.
And speaking of technology, this was a really cool tech tools session. And next week, we've got a good one coming up. So ELP intern Tiara Opus now will be leading a session on creating social media content for your language, in your language, making cool TikTok videos. I don't know about that. I'm too old, but you can make cool TikTok videos. And we're going to learn a little bit about a program called Canva to help you make really eye-catching, beautiful social media stuff in your language. So tune in next week. That will be back at our normal time of 7 p.m. Pacific. But again, take note that we had this daylight savings time shift thing in North America. So
Thanks
run
for
it through
staying
a
up
time
late.
zone. Yeah.
Thanks for staying up late for me. Thank you
Yeah.
all. Email, get in touch. I'm excited to work with everybody. Thanks so much. You guys are doing awesome work and keep going. You
You're
got
doing
this.
awesome work too. Thanks for being here, Stephanie. And thank you for this fantastic session. And thank you everybody for being here tonight. And we hope to see you next week.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good morning. Have a great weekend. Bye, folks.
Bye.